So, the Biden-Harris Department of Justice is suing Virginia for removing non-citizens from the voter rolls. Governor Glenn Youngkin responds. This is from the Gateway Pundit. Essentially, it's about removing people from the rolls too close to the election. That's what I got from this. Quote, the Justice Department announced today that it has filed a lawsuit against the state of Virginia, Virginia State Board of Elections, and Virginia Commissioner of Elections to challenge a systematic state program aimed at removing voters from its election rolls too close to the November 5 general election in violation of the National Voter Registration Act of 1993. Section 8C2, known as the Quiet Period provision, requires states to complete systematic programs aimed at removing the names of ineligible voters from voter registration lists no later than 90 days before federal elections. The quiet period provision applies to certain systematic programs carried out by states that are aimed at striking names from voter registration lists based on a perceived failure to meet initial eligibility requirements, including citizenship at the time of registration. So they're basically saying, it's too late, you should have completed this before, now it's illegal. The lawsuit comes 2 months after Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin issued an executive order that codifies election security procedures to protect the 2024 election against intentional fraud. Governor Youngkin's policies include use 100% paper ballots with a strict chain of custody. I think this should be a requirement everywhere, but that's just my personal opinion, YouTube. I'm not saying anything is not secure. We use counting machines, not voting machines, that are tested prior to every election and never connect to the internet. I also think that is a good thing. We do not mass mail ballots. We monitor our drop boxes 24/7. We verify the legal presence and identity of voters using DMV data and other trusted data sources to update our voter rolls daily. I think these are all positive things. Governor Glenn Youngkin responded to the lawsuit with less than 30 days until the election. The Biden-Harris Department of Justice is filing an unprecedented lawsuit against me and the Commonwealth of Virginia for appropriately enforcing a 2006 law signed by Democrat Tim Kaine that requires Virginia to remove non-citizens from the voter rolls, a process that starts with someone declaring themselves a non-citizen and then registering to vote. In my opinion, if you declared yourself a non-citizen, then I don't think that 90 days before the election or not matters. The 90 days thing is obviously so that you can't be removed from the voter rolls and then not have time to appeal it, to make sure that you can vote in time for the elections. But if you declared yourself a non-citizen, on your head be it, in my opinion, obviously. Virginians and Americans will see this for exactly what it is, a desperate attempt to attack the legitimacy of the elections in the Commonwealth at the very crucible of American democracy. With the support of our Attorney General, we will defend these common sense steps that we are legally required to take with every resource available to us. Virginia's election will be secure and fair, and I will not stand idly by as this politically motivated action tries to interfere in our elections period. He's not really talking about the legality of removing people 90 days before the elections, or less, obviously, much less in this case. He is claiming to depend on a law passed by a Democrat in 2006, and it sort of shows you how things changed very quickly. In 18 years, suddenly Democrats flipped on the issue of certain protections for elections, claiming that they are superfluous and even harmful, and we'll get to that in a minute. This is California legislator passes bill banning voter ID laws, specifically non-federal voting ID laws, right? The California legislature passed a bill banning local governments from adopting voter identification laws for local elections. California does not require identification to vote, but earlier this year, the city of Huntington Beach approved a voter ID requirement for municipal elections starting in 2026. This bill would override Huntington Beach's policy. Quote, an overwhelming body of evidence proves that voter ID laws only subvert voter turnout and create barriers to law-abiding voters, wrote bill author State Senator Dave Min, who's a Democrat. To register to vote in California, voters are already required to provide a driver's license number, California identification number, or the last 4 digits of their social security number. State Assembly member Bill Estiley? Something like that, was a Republican, introduced a failed amendment to the bill that would have explicitly banned undocumented immigrants from voting. Just let him do it if this is a performative step. Oh, what's wrong with me today? Anyway, if this is just a performative step, let him do it and move on. Just ignore it. Obviously, in my opinion, it's because it might not be a performative step, but your mileage might vary. Undocumented immigrants are able to secure California identification numbers, and non-citizens are allowed to vote in local school board elections in San Francisco. It's not just the California identification numbers, I think also driver's license, if I'm not wrong. You can get those without being a citizen in California, probably, and in many blue states. So claiming that this is a sufficient requirement to prove citizenship is obviously wrong. Huntington Beach's neighboring city of Santa Ana is considering following San Francisco's lead. A November ballot measure would allow non-citizens to vote in all, not just school board municipal elections in the city. California Attorney General Rob Bonta sued Huntington Beach for its ordinance, claiming it violates state and federal law because most elections involve voting for municipal, state, and federal office at the same time. So if all you require is the California identification number or the driver's license, so non-citizens could theoretically vote for everything at the same time with that? Is that correct? Am I misunderstanding something? Because otherwise it would almost seem as though you allow non-citizens to vote in federal elections over there, which I'm sure is not the case, obviously. Bonta also argued the ordinance's requirement that ballot drop boxes be monitored by video could dissuade voting. I wonder why. Huntington Beach argues that the fact the legislature introduced SB 1174 suggests it was, in fact, permissible for its voters to approve such an ordinance. As a charter city with greater rights under the state constitution, the city is likely to pursue legal options to defend its ordinance against the law if it is signed by the governor. So there you have it. I did ask ChatGPT, which I consider sort of bellwether to the leftist mind. I mean, considering how biased it tends to be, if asked to list reasons to vote for Trump, it refuses, but it does so for Kamala. And against Trump, it will agree and list them out. But if you ask against Kamala why you shouldn't vote for her, it will tell you that it refuses to be political. It's not supposed to. So, but there's also the case where it basically, how to put it, pretended that nobody ever made an attempt on Trump, even weeks after the attempt happened. So, I think it's quite obviously biased and a good indicator of the reasoning that the liberals use to justify their positions. So I asked it, what proof is there that voter ID laws create barriers to vote for legal citizens? And it answered essentially that access to ID is the biggest problem from what I understood. Basically, it's saying many individuals, particularly low-income citizens, minorities, and the elderly, may not possess the required identification. Now, I wonder about that because I've seen many YouTube videos of people going to minority, low-income neighborhoods, asking people if they have an ID, and they say, of course, everyone here has an ID. You need it in order to receive, assistance from the government and from many other things. It's very easy to get an ID. But supposing that this is anecdotal and there truly is a problem, then the solution is not to relax the requirements to vote, but rather to enact a program to get people IDs. My 2 cents. Turnout studies basically show that voter ID laws can lead to decreased voter turnout, particularly among marginalized groups. Studies conducted in states with strict ID requirements often indicate lower participation rates compared to those without such laws. Legal challenges basically say the same thing. It impacts minorities. Comparative analysis basically show that there is less voter participation in states with ID laws. And surveys and polling often reveal that a significant number of eligible voters lack the necessary identification. So all of this, from what I got, is just some people don't have IDs, so they might not come to vote if you have voter ID laws. Once again, just get them IDs. What's the problem? I don't understand. Then you can have secure elections and not harm turnout. So I asked, is there proof that without voter ID laws, non-citizens might be voting? And basically it said no. In summary, while concerns about non-citizen voting exist, the evidence suggests that it is not a widespread problem, and voter ID laws are often framed as solutions to a non-existent issue. So I asked it how many people basically agreed with it, and basically said that 60% of Americans believe there was a significant risk of fraud in elections, and 30 to 40% of people expressed little to no trust in elections, and that it was often along political lines, essentially with Republicans being way more skeptical about the elections, the process, I mean. So I wonder, what does it cost you to assuage the fears of essentially 30 to 40 at best, and it was 60% of your citizens? Just get people IDs and then have an ID requirement? Not. I mean, is that such a high price to pay? The idea of using 100% paper ballots, strict chain of custody, that used to be the standard. I think it still is in all of Europe, basically all over the world, except for America for some reason. I'd say it's the basics, isn't it? I mean, not that I'm claiming that there's anything wrong with how the elections is run right now, YouTube forbid, but I don't know, the idea of using counting machines that are never connected to the internet, yeah, I'd say that it would probably increase people's trust in elections. I can't help but remember the video of Trump boasting about Operation Warp Speed and the, pandemic jabs, and being booed by his own supporters because they're not monolithic and tribal. They are, making their own minds after doing their own research. So if you just use the same system as we all used to use, as almost the entire world is still using today, I think you'd have far less people questioning, wrongly of course, the integrity of your elections. But for some reason, I've seen Democrats very bullish on this. They will not move an inch. And people like Elon Musk are openly saying that they believe, not me, YouTube, that this election, if the Republicans lose, will be essentially the last meaningful election in the history of the United States, because there will be so many new undocumented voters that it will become a one-party state, just like California. Because California used to be a Republican state and then, changed over time due to demographics. So people like Elon Musk are not alleging, they are outright saying that they believe that this is what will happen to the entirety of the United States if Republicans lose this time around, because, they think that that's what the Democrats are doing. So if you stand to essentially lose your democracy because half your people don't believe in the process anymore, I'd say fixing the process should probably be a priority. And you can, it's not that expensive or difficult. It's basically just doing what you used to do until recently. I think it's much easier than basically brainwashing everyone to agree with you anyway, despite any reservations they might have. I don't think this is a problem of, public opinion. I think this is a problem that is a result of actions in the real world. There have been changes to the way people conduct elections, and not everyone agrees. It should be natural for people to disagree on issues without being repressed from expressing it. But this is an old school way of thinking, I guess, today. Anyway, that's enough for today. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.